we have with us joining the show now an expert to talk about how this kind of global instability affects Utah's economy. Aaron Starks, friend of the show, Chief Revenue Officer and Managing Director of Global Business Services at World Trade Center Utah. Aaron, I just spoke to you last week about the assassination of former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on KSL Daytime. Now you are here helping us understand the instability in the economy here in Utah because of the war in Ukraine and China's relationship with Russia. Aaron, you're the man, you're the expert. What can you tell us about this specific issue now?
Well, thanks for having me on. And as we all know, the Utah economy is not immune to geopolitical interventions and turbulence, far away from home. As it relates to Utah, China is our fourth largest trading partner. We exchange, several billion in imports and exports with the country. So this overall is a very important relationship for us as a state, but obviously as a nation as well. They own a large percentage of our debt. There's been an ongoing trade war with them since Donald Trump took office. We've taken a harder stance on China. Now, the complicating factor here is that the dynamics have changed in light of this Ukraine invasion. And so we're all asking ourselves, what does this mean for the future of our country with China? One thing is certain: China is not ideologically aligned with the United States like our NATO allies are. They are led by a very controlling political party. Some would refer to it as a dictatorship. It is an economy that has taken off, and there are things that we're learning. But the complicating factor in all of this is that Russia is still exporting large amounts of gas, petroleum. They have one of the largest economies in the world. The neighborhood surrounding Russia is, in some ways you can't blame China. That whole neighborhood is on their tippy toes because Russia is such a force to be reckoned with. And so it'll be very interesting to see what Antony Blinken decides to do. Coming out of Indonesia this week, it was very clear that the U.S. feels China and Russia are supporting one another. To what extent, I think we're trying to figure that out still, but certainly an interesting time for us, Taylor.
Aaron, this is Greg Skordas. I was going to ask you another question about this, and if we look at Russia's invasion of Ukraine and China's sort of hinting at the invasion of Taiwan, is there any notion for the idea that China might be saying, look, we might be in this exact same position in 5 years, and we're sort of watching how the world is reacting to this, and Russia has not done a very good job, but we don't want to jump too hard against them because we may be in their shoes?
Yeah, it kind of takes you back to when you were kids and you were with your friends and you didn't want to be the first one to jump into the swimming pool because you didn't want to see how cold it was, so you always had your friends go first, right?
Or you threw them in, right, Aaron?
or you threw them in. And I think that's very analogous to the situation we're in. There are some differentiating dynamics there, but absolutely. I mean, we've just come out of an evacuation of Afghanistan. Some would say that's weakened the country, internally for us. We're more divided than we've ever been. And on the heels of that, Russia made a strategic play, a decision to invade Ukraine.
Yeah.
Not the first, by the way, right? We've seen this before.
Sure.
You can absolutely believe that China's going, well, is this the time to catch the U.S. on its heels and go into Taiwan? I don't believe it is. I think they've seen a great strengthening of the NATO alliance. I think that's shocked many people in Southeast Asia and South Asia and that part of the world. Europe has convened and said, no, we're with the West on this, and it's time to stand up to Russia. That's a great thing. We just read about Germany being in a position now to where they may no longer import petroleum from Russia. And that would be huge. That would be a huge, maybe potential opportunity, certainly hard for Germany. But they're taking a stand and saying, no matter how hard it is, we believe in democracy.
We are joined by – I'm sorry, Aaron, go ahead. You give me 10 seconds, and I'm going to jump in, Aaron. I talk that much, okay? I cut you off, though. You were finishing your sentence there.
I was just going to say we're just seeing that those within Europe, no matter how hard the consequences are, they're saying we believe in democracy, and it's time that we stand.
Yeah, and we're willing to pay the price, right, economically for democracy. Whether or not we remain willing to pay that price, I think, is yet to be tested, and it certainly continues to be a challenge. We're joined by Aaron Starks, Chief Revenue Officer and Managing Director of Global Business Services at World Trade Center, Utah. Aaron, I know that you work closely in collaboration with federal entities and chambers of commerce and other groups in developing and managing these kinds of business relationships with trading partners overseas. What I'm really interested to know is if there's any dynamic there where you, on behalf of Utah, have the ability to manage relationships independently of, you know, what the federal organizations or what the State Department or what the Chinese national government, regardless of those negotiations and relationships, are you and your colleagues at the World Trade Center Utah able to have any influence or ability to manage relationships directly with trading partners in China aside from the federal element?
Yeah, that's a great question. We are the state's trade promotion authority, and thanks to a great public-private partnership with the state of Utah, we're able to leverage the collective resources and networks that we have in state. But from a private organizational standpoint, we have the autonomy and ability to go out and generate our own networks overseas to help our companies. So the mission of our organization is to accelerate growth for Utah companies through our networks, services, and programs. And China is a large consumer market. It's a large manufacturing market. It's the second largest economy in the world. What that means is that a lot of companies are asking two questions right now. How do we get our consumer product into China? Is it safe to do so? How do we protect our IP? And logistically speaking, what are the implications? But then on the other side, they're saying, you know what, we've had enough of the looming trade war. We don't want to take on any more risk as a small business. How do we work toward regional supply chain solutions and divest out of China? Making all of that work possible and all of our consultative efforts possible is a vibrant network of partners throughout the whole world. So yes, to your point, we lean heavily on our private networks to help Utah companies.
So important right now. So glad you're there to do that.
That's an interesting question, Taylor, and I'm glad that you brought that out because it is complicated and we're going so far. Aaron, thank you so much for your time this evening.